Does visualization create false memories? I read a study recently that got me thinking about this, and more importantly, it got me thinking about the poppycock news stories that are probably going to get written because of this study. So, let's have a look at the study and at the truth about visualization. A couple of things, a little bit of inside baseball as we start. You might hear some construction noise in the background. There is a house behind the building where I live that is a fraternity house. It is getting some much needed renovations, and that is the sound that you can hear. The other thing is, if you have just recently watched episode 138, you will have heard me say the same thing. And you might be thinking, wow, how long does this construction go on? The thing that I want you to be aware of is these videos get produced in batches. I do a batch of videos every week. That way, during the week, we do all the scripting and all the research and that sort of stuff. And then at the end of the week, basically Friday, we shoot a group of videos, usually 4 at a time. It can be more, it can be less. But there you go. I don't know if that's useful to you. I don't know if you ever wanted to know that, but there you go. If you're wondering about the shirts, yes, I have a stack of shirts, and every time we shoot a new video, I put on a new shirt. Oh. Anyway, the study. I found it through neurosciencenews.com, and there is a link down in the description to the study. I have to admit, I really thought about maybe not including it, because wow, the study does not impress me as being even a very good idea to start with. But there you go. The first thing to catch my attention in the study is that all of the subjects were epilepsy patients. Okay, so you're starting out with somebody who has a physical defect in their brain, which, by the way, is a defect that has the potential to influence memory, the very thing you are studying. Okay, well, I'm sure you can see how that's bad, and that's probably bad enough. Unfortunately, it does get worse. And it gets worse because I did a little bit of digging about epilepsy and the fact that in general it can have a negative effect on memory and learning. Now, that said, before I even start, especially if you're watching this and you have epilepsy, most people who have epilepsy never have issues with their memory or with learning. Very few. We're talking 1 in like 10,000 kind of thing. Very few. So, not 1 in 10,000 people. 1 in 10,000 people with epilepsy. Okay? So, let me put that out right away. If you are watching this and you have epilepsy, there is nothing in here that is meant to in any way, shape, or form frighten you. Okay? Now I'll go back to the script and what the research showed. So, if you have epilepsy and seizures start or originate in the temporal lobe, the front part of your brain, they can damage the hippocampus. And guess what the hippocampus does? Memory. And now, this research, and the research is also listed in the description below, so you can go read this for yourself. And this comes from the Epilepsy Foundation, and as they put it, what happens is if you have a stroke that originates in the temporal lobe and ends up causing damage to the hippocampus, it causes your brain to behave or to operate as though the librarian is on strike. You're unable to locate stuff in your memory. Again, another clarification, okay? Because I don't want to scare people with epilepsy. Most folks who have epilepsy never have to worry about this stuff. And when it comes to the idea of false impressions or false memories, these are things, it's more than just misremembering something. A false memory is remembering something that never happened, okay? And the reason that I bring this up, and I'm making such an effort to be clear about it, is because the study itself introduces an uncontrolled element by using epileptic patients as study subjects. That's a bad idea. That's bad science. And it would be reasonable to ask, okay, well then, why did they use epileptic patients? The answer is very simple, very straightforward. These are people who had already agreed to have intracranial electrodes inserted into their brains. And this study wanted to measure electrical impulses in the hippocampus. So, kind of hard to convince otherwise healthy people to have electrodes inserted into their brain. But folks with epilepsy, and particularly folks with severe epilepsy, are people who are more likely or more willing to say yes to that kind of procedure. Something that really cheesed me off is the folks doing this study are putting it forward as a potential treatment for PTSD. They call the treatment novel therapies. Ooh, doesn't that sound fancy? And what they suggest is targeted interventions that can disrupt retrieval of intrusive memories. Okay, remember who these patients are? They have intracranial electrodes inserted in their brain. The targeted interventions are electrical shocks to disrupt retrieval of intrusive memories. So what this is just a new way to administer electroconvulsive therapy. And what they're just completely farfignugan leaving out is when someone is electrocuted, there's no telling where the electricity is going to go. Our bodies operate on electricity. Neurons firing, muscle fibers twitching. Okay, we are electrical beings. But when an electrical charge reaches our body from the outside, there's no telling where it's going to go. The only thing that you can tell is, if I hold onto a live wire, and I have nothing insulating me from the ground, and I'm standing on one foot, okay, electricity is going to go in through my hand, and it is going to go out through my foot. This much we know. Where else it goes in the body, what else it does in the body, we don't know until after it does it. And when it comes to electroconvulsive therapy, here's the giveaway. In order to administer it, they have to administer a paralytic first. They have to anesthetize you. Otherwise, you would be screaming in pain. And take it from me, I have been electrocuted. Not electroconvulsive therapy. I'm a carpenter. I have been electrocuted. It's never fun. It's never a, oh, let's do that again, ha ha ha, kind of experience. I'm guessing you can tell that I'm just a little concerned about this idea, as well as significantly offended by this idea. And I'll share some about myself. I've told this in videos before, I've told this from the stage before. I have PTSD. Both from growing up with abusive parents, from serving in the military, from being in a car crash, okay? There are a lot of events in my life that were traumatic. So, there is some stress that results from that. I can tell you that a flashback, what they are calling intrusive memories, can be very hard to handle. Imagine walking down the street and flashing back to a dramatic, emotionally intense memory. So you're just walking down the street, and for who knows what reason, you have a flashback, and you actually see, you are reliving a memory. That is absolutely intrusive. But as bad as a flashback is, if it's a choice between having a flashback and having a defibrillator in my brain to stop the flashback, I'll stick with the devil I know. Okay, because PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the only time it becomes a disorder is when you handle the stress poorly. If you deal with the stress, if you deal with the memory, if you deal with the event, no need for a disorder. Does that mean flashbacks never happen? No, I can tell you they happen. Okay, because what happened was really intense. And just like acid, you take LSD, something people seem to ignore, and I hear people advocating taking LSD today, advocating taking LSD because it will open up your consciousness. Yeah, with one itty bitty tiny weeny smidgen of a difficulty. Once you take it, it can flash back on you at any point for the rest of your life. And as someone who has experienced flashbacks, wow, why would you ever do something deliberately that could cause that? Okay. That's all for the study. I think I've spouted off enough about that. Let's look at visualization. The question obviously is, are we creating false memories by feeding vivid detail into our self-image? Because that's what visualization is about. Now, I've talked about sincerity, congruence, precision when you are building the images of the things you want to achieve. So the quick answer is no. We are creating present tense images of our future. We are not creating false memories. I doubt that that's very clear. It's clear to me because I know what I want to say. But might be less clear to you watching because you don't have the whole script in front of you. You haven't just spent the last few days researching this. So, first, what is a false memory? I mentioned earlier. It can be as simple as believing that you locked the front door when you didn't. Okay, so you remember locking the front door, but you didn't. And of course, the reason you remember that is because you can clearly see yourself locking the front door. You've done it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of times. But you get home and find, oh, I didn't lock the front door. Okay, that's one. We also see false memories in TV shows and movies. You know, someone remembers, for example, having a wonderful childhood, but it was actually less than stellar. I remember, I forget the name of the television show, Timothy Oliphant, Justified, that's it. Rachel is one of the characters, and she tells a story about remembering that basically they were the Cosbys. There was a feast on Sundays, everybody was happy, it was wonderful, and her mother has to continually correct her that no, it really wasn't like that. Okay, so she remembers having a wonderful childhood, but it wasn't really. Okay, another is, and this is something about which I am vigilant. You remember having a really vile childhood. Okay, but you need to be careful. Because it especially for someone in my position, it's really easy to believe that, my parents were just nasty, cruel, vicious people. But they weren't. They were generally well liked by people around them. They certainly experienced some consequences to their choices and the way they chose to live. But it wasn't as though they were pariahs in society in general. Okay? So even if you've had a very bad childhood, okay, be careful, because there might be things about it that are better than you even want to believe. A visualization is very different from a false memory. Let's say, and I'll use my situation. I want to work with Lee, who does all kinds of tech stuff. I want to work with Stephanie, who is fantastic at multi-level marketing and affiliate marketing and coaching. And I want to work with Linda, who is clearly outstanding at event organization and hosting. Okay, well, each person has their skill set and their teams. That stuff is already in place. So when I visualize this, for example, working with Lee, I see him and his team. And there's no need to have clear faces of every person in his team. I have a clear face for Lee, and I know who is in his team. So I think about tech-related stuff when it comes to Lee, and how we can do things together. So I'm visualizing, for example, when it comes to these videos. Right now, I do all the work for these videos myself. I do all the scripting, I do the shooting, I do the editing, the uploading, all of that stuff. Well, as Lee and I start to work together, some of that stuff will be offloaded to members of his team. And so I think through now, in present tense, how I work with Lee. Now I know that it's going to happen in the future, but I think of it in the present tense, and when I talk to myself about imagining this stuff, I imagine talking to Lee that it's happening right now. That's visualization. I am creating what is going to come to me in the future. The question is, do you see the difference? Okay, a false memory is remembering that your brother ate the extra pork chop when it was really the dog that stole it from the table. So you have some kind of grudge against your brother, you know the dog stole the pork chop from the table, but you decide to blame your brother, and that's your memory, that he took it, that he ate it. That's not true. Or maybe you remember that your first date was at a pizza place when it was really in an Italian restaurant. Hey, these are false memories. Visualization is creating a vividly detailed image of something that you want to occur in your life. You're drawing it to yourself. A new car, a spouse, running a business, giving a perfect presentation from the stage, having an entire audience rush to the back of the room to buy your thing, okay? The purpose of visualization is to draw that into your life. And you are giving it vivid detail because the vivid detail is what you want to draw into your life. A quick example, I have a lot of vivid detail about who I want as a wife. Well, one of the elements is that she has to be really funny. She has to really enjoy laughing. And part of the reason for that is I want my wife to be involved with me, to participate with me. And I want these presentations, I recognize that I'm already informative, that I teach, okay, and I'm thrilled to do that. But I would like these presentations to be more humorous, to be more fun. Because when we learn, all the chemicals that get produced in our brain help us learn even better, help us retain the memory of what it is we are learning. And I want my wife to be part of that. I want us to be a team. Okay, let me wrap this up. It's really simple. Memory, what happened in the past, and visualization, what you want to happen in your future clearly have a lot in common. But one is about the past. The other is about drawing things into yourself as part of your future. It's really kind of that simple. If you have questions, comments, anything along, any curiosity at all, please feel free to put it in the comments below, and I'm thrilled to get you an answer.